Who are the dynasty targets, both rookies and veterans, that you need to acquire on your team as well as shed off your team? What are the best ADP values right now in FFPC drafts? And who is the key to unlocking success in the $1 million grand prize in the FFPC Main Event and the $1 million grand prize in the FFPC Big Gorilla? We are here to answer those questions and much more tonight. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. We have a great show for you tonight. Adam Tountas is here, the 5-time FFPC league champion, will co-host with me tonight. It's going to be a fun ride. We have a great show. Your FFPC High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour officially starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than neither lesser.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Hello, greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs tuning in tonight for the latest edition of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship, myffpc.com. So good to have you aboard tonight. We have a fantastic show lined up for you. Now, unfortunately, to disappoint some people already posting on YouTube, we do not have Ferrell Elliott tonight. I screwed up. I think we made mention of this last Wednesday on the show when John Terry was on. Ferrell is off today. Ferrell is off next week as well. So we will have guest co-hosts for the next 2 weeks, and Ferrell will rejoin us in June, which will be a lot of fun. Can't wait to do that. So tonight on the show, which is brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship, hey, a lot of stuff going on with the FFPC right now. And I want to tell you at the top, the FFPC Main Event early bird deadline will expire 9 days. Essentially, now it's 8 days because we're already, 10:03 in the PM Eastern time zone on Friday, May 23rd. It goes off at midnight Pacific time on May 31st, which is next Saturday. That is the deadline to get in for the $200 off your first team. And if you do get in by then, you will also have the luxury of being entered in the FFPC Pros versus Joes drawing, where you'll have the opportunity to draft against 5 other FFPC Joes and 6 industry pros. And the winner of each of those 12 leagues, or 12 team leagues, we're going to have 7 of those leagues. The winner of each of those 7 leagues will win a free entry into the 2026 FFPC Main Event. So this is, you need to be doing this right now. myffpc.com is where to register. Sign up today. And take your shot at a $1 million grand prize. Slow drafts already off and running. Live drafts for the main event will start shortly. I also want to remind you too, with the Big Gorilla, and this is I included this in the FFPC mailer today in case you saw this or in case you didn't. The FFPC Big Gorilla tournament not only giving away a $1 million grand prize, not only will you get $50 off every third team that you purchase, not only are drafts off and running now, both slow and live. You can get into the early Rampage tournament. We only have 100 leagues filled in the early Rampage tournament. That means there's 100 more leagues to go. So when you enter the Big Gorilla right now, not only will you be eligible for that $1 million grand prize, you'll be eligible for that $10,000 grand prize in the early Rampage tournament and the 7 Bananas promo as well. Keep in mind, every time you hit a 7 pick in a row, you are going to be getting something. We saw Darren Armani, last night's guest on the Insider Access show on the Better Sports Network. Darren Armani won a $125 Best Ball Tournament entry because he got the 7 pick twice in a row. Also last night, I think it was Claudius, I can't remember the username, but he was the second player to get the 7 pick 3 times in a row so far this drafting season. It's still May, and we've already awarded 2 separate free main event entries to 2026 because these players ended up getting the 7 pick 3 times in a row. You do it 4 times in a row, boom, $10,000 high society entry fee on us. If you do it 5 times in a row, which granted is not likely, but has happened before, you're going to get a Jungle Safari 4-4 courtesy of the Fantasy Football Players Championship, myffpc.com. So that's the big gorilla. FFPC Best Ball and Superflex Best Ball tournaments going on at myffpc.com. New this year for the Best Ball tournament, a $100,000 runner-up prize. So you could take second, not even win the whole thing, and you will get a six-figure prize. Dynasty startups going on at myffpc.com. Entry fees range from $100 all the way up to $5,000. 1,800 plus leagues over the last 15 years. None have ever folded. myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share with your friends, share with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. Okay, I've wasted enough time, ladies and gentlemen. Filling in for the incomparable Ferrell Elliott tonight, we have a guy who is not only well-versed in FFPC Dynasty leagues, but FFPC redraft leagues as well. He's won 5 of them over the course of his short career in the Fantasy Football Players Championship. Please welcome into the show my co-host for this evening, Mr. Adam Tountas. Adam, so good to have you aboard tonight. Good evening. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here, Eric. Thank you.
Absolutely good to have you aboard tonight. So much fun. And I know that you have been playing a lot of Dynasty stuff, especially the last couple of years. What is it about Dynasty Fantasy Football that just basically has you captured and captivated that you love it so much?
I mean, I'm an addict, in short. I think I just like the idea of having a team over the long haul, getting to change it, getting to mix it up. It adds an element of ownership that you don't get in redraft, and I like it.
It's a lot of fun, and I think, and you've done redraft stuff over the years too. I've always said this on this show, and I've said it on all my shows. Like, I think playing Dynasty makes you a better redraft player. I think playing redraft makes you a better Dynasty player too. I mean, it sharpens everything, and it really lets you it gets you dialed in to know, okay, this is what I should be doing here for this year. This is what I should be doing for future years. I don't know. That's how I've always felt about it. I played redraft and Dynasty, and it's sort of like, my starch and my entree. Like, I have to have both. I can't have one or the other, Adam.
I totally agree. Absolutely.
Let's get into the interview tonight, because I want to let everybody know who you are and why you're on tonight. Before we get into the fantasy football portion, tell the viewers, tell the listeners what you're doing for a living when you're not winning all these FFPC leagues.
I'm an attorney. You're not allowed to tell anybody.
Your secret's safe with me.
I appreciate that.
What kind of law do you practice, or is that am I overstepping? Is that
no,
sharing?
Not at all. I'm a litigator, a civil litigator, mostly defense work. Yeah, mostly defense work. But people hire me when they've been sued. They hire me when they're in their darkest hour, and I help them navigate those challenges.
Much like picking up an orphan Dynasty team, right? That
Absolutely.
Could be in its darkest hour, and then you basically rescue it from the recesses of ambiguity, of like the worst possible spot that these orphan teams could be in. You are rescuing them. So it makes a lot of sense. How many years have you been doing this now, Adam?
An attorney?
Yeah.
I think I will be 20 years in the fall.
Good for you. Good for you. And what part of that, where are you located?
I live in West Michigan, the Grand Rapids area.
Oh my God. The pride of Michigan tonight. Big Lions fan?
Huge Lions fan. Lifelong Lions fan.
What do you make of we'll break it in right now. I don't know if we have any Lions stuff. Well, we do have some Lions stuff on the rundown, but we'll get to the specifics on that. What do you make of the Lions schedule this year, knowing that I have a terrestrial radio show, a local radio show here in Northeast Wisconsin, and one of my listeners to that is a diehard Lions fan, and he's been telling me, and I can't really disagree with him, the Lions probably have the toughest schedule, not only in the NFC North, but in the entire NFL. They have that first place schedule, and obviously going up against the Bears, Vikings, and Packers twice a year. That's no easy task. What do you make of the Lions not only having the toughest schedule in the NFL, but breaking in not one, but 2 new coordinators this year under Dan Campbell? Is this kind of like, hey, listen, they're good enough to navigate this, or do you have a little bit of pause when you think about how good Detroit could be this year? Because this matters for fantasy too.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I have any pause. I mean, I'm actually really excited about the new coordinators. They've been grooming Shepard for a long time. I've read a lot of interviews that Campbell's given, and they were really intentional about selecting him and keeping him involved last season. And John Morton's been around. I mean, he was here. There's that vignette from Hard Knocks a couple of years back where they were talking about what do we do with Craig Reynolds, and Morton said, "You don't cut him. He's everything we stand for," right? I mean, so these are familiar faces, and I assume it's going to be a little bit different, but I'm bullish.
Do you, well, okay, let's get into the actual fantasy aspect here. So number one, I want to kick things off with Derrick Henry. King Henry will open things up tonight. A guy that we talked about, I think we talked about with Ferrell last week, because he signed that 2-year extension. And anytime you have a 30-plus-year-old running back signing an extension, my spidey sense perks up, because I'm like, really? We're doing this? Okay. And then the other thing we have to look at here too, Adam, is Derrick Henry. If we look at the FFPC Big Gorilla ADP right now, which is courtesy of fantasymojo.com, Darren Armani, who is my guest on the FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network last night. Anytime we cite ADP on this show, it's courtesy of him. We can answer this question from a dynasty standpoint. We can also answer this question from a redraft standpoint. Derrick Henry is running back 6, dude, 203 right now in the FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament over the last 7 days. I know you have some shares in dynasty of him. Can you tell me what type of season you think he's going to have this year? And also what you're doing with those shares that you have him in FFPC dynasty leagues?
I'm holding every share I've got of Derrick Henry, and I will ride him until the wheels fall off. I think he's going to be just as good this year as he was last year. His role in the offense isn't going to change. I understand he's a year older, but he's a guy who hasn't shown any signs of dropping off. I mean, he had a run that was 21 miles an hour last season. So, I mean, he is who he's always been, and he's a great player. And the way I look at him, Eric, is he is one of the proven 300-point players in my lineup. To me, 300-point players are the gold standard, whether they be receivers, running backs, tight ends. And so I'm holding. And I'm just as bullish on him this year as I was last year and the year before.
Talk about those 300-point players. Like, when you are managing your dynasty rosters in the FFPC, is every move you make your sort of your goal, the end goal? I think about here's the way I'll explain this. Sam Presti, I know this is NBA, and a lot of people are tuning out right now when I start talking basketball. But I think it was Sam Presti for the Oklahoma City Thunder several years ago when he was the GM there. I don't think he's the GM there anymore. But he made all these trades. It might have been Daryl Morey, actually, in Houston. That's who I want to talk about. He made all these incremental trades where he got basically 5% better with every single trade. So it took a long while to get there, right? But if you do enough of these in FFPC Dynasty, you can actually achieve what's the I think it's the red paper clip. That was a big thing in the United Kingdom, where this dude had a red paper clip and he ended up making like a series of like 8 or 9 trades, and he turned it into like a house in London or something like that, because he got incrementally a little bit better every single time. And I think that's the question I'm kind of posing to you here. Is this the way you're handling your dynasty rosters? Are you just trying to like not win every deal, but just get a little bit better every single time? So you know that whatever deal you're making is maybe not going to put you over the edge. But if you make a series of these and continually getting better, then all of a sudden you fall into these 300-point scores, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's 2 things I think about whenever I'm thinking about a dynasty trade. One is, am I consolidating value? What's the value proposition of the deal? But I think first and foremost, I look at my starting lineup, the front line, and I think, am I any better? Does this trade make me better? You know, I mean, depth is important. You always want to have depth on your roster, but as many 300-point players as I can get, I'm looking for. And when I enter a rookie draft and I look at folks, I mean, my number one consideration is I don't follow a lot of college football. I don't really have time. I never miss an NFL game, but I've got 3 kids. I've got a busy law practice, so I don't really tune into college football. But when I do my scouting after the season, I, number one, try to decide, who are these players? What's their bundle of skills? And then I wait for landing spot and I say, is that spot going to unlock those skills? But I always sort them mentally into buckets of, are they a 300-point player at their highest peak? Are they a 250-point player? Are they a 200-point player? You know, and I want as many 300-point players as I can. And landing spot's a big part of that.
Do you, I mean, listen, you can never have enough 300-point scores, obviously, in Dynasty. Do you feel like there's a sweet spot? Like once I have 4, now I'm happy. And now this team can compete. Now that I have 2, I feel like I'm in competition. Do you ever think about it in those terms? Excuse me, in those terms for Dynasty, where like once you achieve a certain level, as far as how many of them you have, you feel like, okay, now I'm in competition mode rather than reload mode?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to me, the magic number is probably 3. If I've got 3 people who are conceivably 300-point players on my team, I feel comfortable. I want, in a perfect world, your starting wide receivers and running backs are 300-point players or 250 plus. I mean, there's like the gray area. But yeah, I think that's right. I think you're muted.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
Thank you so much. Let's talk about the Steelers. This is not the last time we'll talk about the Steelers tonight.
Yeah.
George Pickens is now a Dallas Cowboy, my friend. When you look at the opening for the second wide receiver, and I don't want to say second pass catcher because I think that's Pat Freiermuth, but the second wide receiver in Pittsburgh right now. We could talk dynasty or redraft here and answer these questions however you see fit. But Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, those are the best possible options here for you in Pittsburgh right now for fantasy. I know there was talk about potentially the Steelers talking to the Saints about acquiring Chris Olave. I don't think those conversations went very far. But knowing that how it stands right now, and also knowing that they could bring in somebody, they still could trade for somebody. I don't know if that's going to happen. They could sign a guy like Keenan Allen. That's a possibility as well. But knowing for anybody who's drafting right now, today, May 23rd, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, do you have a strong feeling here of which is the correct Pittsburgh Steeler wide receiver to draft opposite DK Metcalf?
I mean, it's a tough question because Austin's a veteran. And I remember listening to a Steelers beat writer a couple weeks ago while they still had Pickens. And he said, Austin is unquestionably the number 3 pass catcher on the offense. The coaching staff trusts him and he's a veteran. And Wilson missed just about every single minute of last season due to injury. That being said, I love Roman Wilson. I think he's an explosive player. I think he ran like a 4.39. I think he plays faster than that. He's a slot receiver, but he can win vertically. He's a guy who, I mean, and I'm not a Michigan guy, I'm a state grad, but I've watched some Roman Wilson in his college years, and I think he's tough. And I would bet on Wilson if I had to. I've got shares.
You've got shares. Exactly. Now, since you're a state guy, I'll bring this up. I don't think it's on the rundown. What are your thoughts on Jaden Reed, knowing that he kind of was the Packers' de facto number 1 wide receiver after they drafted Savion Williams and Matthew Golden this year? Jaden Reed had a sit down with the Packers GM, Brian Gutekunst, and Gutekunst assured him that what they did in the draft does not affect his standing as the number 1 wide receiver on the team, which I think is interesting because the number 1 wide receiver on the Packers is a lot different than the number 1 wide receiver on a lot of other teams. What are your feelings about Jaden Reed in Dynasty and redraft right now, knowing what the Packers did, what they did in the NFL draft?
I like Jaden Reed a lot. I think he'll have a good year. I'm hoping he has a good year. They ran a lot of press man coverage the second half of last season against the Packers. And I don't want to call him a gadget guy, but he's at his best when you scheme him touches, find ways to scheme him open. And so I think adding Golden's actually going to help him. I think Golden adds this vertical threat. I think Golden, way of thinking about it to me, Eric, is he should end up being what they wanted Christian Watson to be in their offense. Watson, I love Watson too, but he can't stay healthy. So, Golden adds that vertical element. And I think hopefully they can scheme Jaden Reed open a bunch and design stuff for him.
And that's sort of what they did when he was crushing it, right? That's what they were doing. And then for whatever reason, they just went away from it the second half of 2024, which I still don't understand. And obviously with the Williams and Golden thing, maybe from what you're telling me here tonight, Adam, maybe the Williams and Golden thing presents a buying opportunity for Jaden Reed in Dynasty. And maybe it lowers his ADP to a level that it shouldn't be right now. And we should be getting more Jaden Reed on our team rather than the opposite, which I think a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, for better or worse, Eric, that's been my outlook. I mean, I'm kind of a Spartan homer, but I'm using this as an opportunity to snap up Jaden Reed wherever I can.
I know it's not exciting to talk about the Saints offense because the Saints offense is very offensive from what we have. I thought I saw something on X today about, it was a buddy of mine sent me a text that he got a post from X, and it was the Saints got kicked out of the draft room at the NFL draft, and then the Yahoo app auto drafted Tyler Shook for them, essentially, which I thought was humorous. And he could be the starter. It could be Spencer Rattler. It could be Kirk Cousins for all we know, quite frankly. It's wild what's going on in New Orleans right now, and I don't want to. And we'll talk about the Saints receivers. I think we'll talk about the Saints receivers tonight, but I want to focus in on the running backs. Kendra Miller was a player that I think a lot of us were excited about when he got selected by the Saints in the draft, and yet Dennis Allen and the coaching staff really seemed to keep him in the doghouse there. They didn't like him. Now, who was Reezy? Darren Reezy, I think, was the guy who got elevated to the interim head coach after Dennis Allen got fired. And Reezy said, hey, there's nobody in my doghouse. And so then, okay, well, let's see what happens with Kendra Miller. And it was just kind of like, eh. And then they went out and they got Devin Neal in the draft this year. Devin Neal, a player who his statistical accomplishments at Kansas, unquestioned. Like if you like stats, if you like what he did on the field, you got to love Devin Neal. My concern with Neal is I don't know if he's athletic enough to be a difference maker, to be the explosive type of running back that we want for fantasy and that the Saints are looking for there. But I can't ignore the fact that Alvin Kamara will turn, I think, 57 years old this year. Right. I can't ignore the fact that Kendra Miller has done little to nothing to suggest that he is going to be the backup in New Orleans, right? Enter Devin Neal, and I think it's intriguing here. If you are drafting either in dynasty rookie drafts, or maybe you have the opportunity to pick one of these guys up, or maybe you're looking for a zero RB guy late in your drafts, like the injury away type guy. Is it Devin Neal for you, Adam, or is it Kendra Miller? Where do you fall in on this conversation?
It's Devin Neal without question. I love Devin Neal. I picked him up in just about every rookie draft where I could, and I grabbed him at the end of the second round if I thought that's what I needed to do to get him. I'm very bullish on him. He's a great player.
Devin Neal is okay. And okay. So I guess I should ask this. Is this more of a, like, you love Neal, or you just are not impressed with Kendra Miller? I guess it's probably a mixture. Like, you're not impressed with Miller, but Neal you really love.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Neal's going to be a great professional running back. I'm convinced he will be. It's not as much a criticism of Miller. I just don't think Miller's good enough to keep Neal off the field. You know, I totally understand, Eric, the excitement everybody had when Miller was drafted, because you look at Kamara and you say, look, he's getting long in the tooth, right? He had some injury issues. Now, his demise was grossly overstated. I'm thinking of that old Mark Twain quote, you know, like rumors of my death have been grossly overstated. But Kamara's great, but for all the excitement we had about Miller, I have just as much excitement about Neal, and I feel like Neal's got the tape to back it up. Whereas I didn't feel that way about Miller. We were projecting when it came to Kendra Miller. He had a nice year, but Devin Neal had 4 great years, and he was their entire offense. There's a clip on YouTube the Saints put up. It's like 15 minutes of like silent highlights of Devin Neal. And he's one of these guys with exquisite vision, in my view, right? My humble opinion. His feet and his eyes are perfectly connected. So the play's blocked for 4 or 5 yards. He gets the 4 or 5. And then it looks like somebody's got a beat on him, and he just squeezes away and right out of their grasp. Then he turns that into another cut. He squeezes away right out of their grasp. And one more. And then he's caught from behind because he doesn't have long speed. But you look up, and that's a 15 or a 20-yard gain. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Kyron Williams. I think they win the same way. And so if Devin Neal sees the field, it's going to be really hard to keep him off. That's what I think.
Yeah, and listen, by the way, I'm totally buying into what you're saying here. I think this begs the question, though. Long speed as far as running backs go, because you're an accomplished dynasty player. Is that kind of overrated? Do you not necessarily care about that a whole lot?
I like doubles just as much as I like home runs. And guys who are going to pop off for 10, 15, 20 yards are doubles hitters. You put a couple of those runs together on every drive, and you look up, you fall in the end zone, you got 20 points that week.
Yeah.
You do that a couple weeks in a row, and you're close to being a 300-point player. I think it's easy to get caught up in 40 times and athleticism, but if there is one position in sports where athleticism matters least, I think it's professional running back.
I think the thing I've always said, and man, this is going to burn me because I'm not going to remember the full thing, but I remember like I can't remember it, but there was a dynasty fantasy football analyst that said this a few years ago, and it's stuck with me, but clearly not all the way because I can't remember the whole thing. But he said there is one particular aspect that was most important to each position in dynasty fantasy football. And the most important aspect for success for running backs was not talent. It was not athletic ability. It was not any of those. It was opportunity.
Yeah.
All you need is an opportunity. You don't have to be the fastest guy in the world. You don't have to make everybody miss. You don't have to be this athletic wunderkind that just sets the world on fire. You get the opportunity. Ask Kyron Williams, to the point that you just brought up. Is he a jaw-dropping guy that you're like, oh my God, we got to get this guy? No, he's not. And that's okay, because he wins with being just a good running back who got an opportunity. And maybe that's all Devin Neal needs as well. There's certainly a non-zero chance that if he's given the opportunity this year, if Kamara breaks down, and even if it's only for like a 3 or 4 game window or a 2 or 3 game window, it'll be very interesting to see what Devin Neal can do. Granted, the offensive line is not great. The whole team is not great. The offense is not great, but we've seen what he could do when the chips were against him in Kansas, and maybe he'll do that in the pros as well. Let's move on here to Mike Evans. Oh my God, Mike Evans. So I want to say like a week before the draft, Peter Schrager, now of ESPN, formerly of the NFL, put out a mock draft, and he had the Buccaneers taking like Matthew Golden, or it wasn't Igbuka, but it was another receiver. And I'm like, why would the Buccaneers take a receiver in the first round? They have Evans, they have Godwin. It looks like they found something in Jalen McMillan. I couldn't understand it. And then the Buccaneers went out and grabbed Emeka Egbuka in the first round of the draft. By all accounts, this dude is super high as far as character goes, super high floor. This guy can win in the slot. That's probably where his best fantasy output will come in the pros, is playing in the slot. He can win on the outside as well. He does it all. And now he is the first round pick for the Buccaneers. Chris Godwin is a guy that I love the last couple of years, especially last year. And he's coming off this nasty ankle injury, and yet the Buccaneers gave him a new contract. We know Jalen McMillan is there as well, and really came on at the end of the season. So this is a leading question, counselor, as you are well versed in this. Mike Evans, what's your level of concern knowing everything that the picture I just painted about Godwin, about McMillan, and Egbuka? What do you think about Evans this season? Barely got over 1,000 yards last year. I know he missed like 3 games or whatever. Are we overrating him? Is he being overdrafted? And the big gorilla right now, I can tell you, Adam, that Mike Evans is going as wide receiver 22 at the 406. Certainly, I could see him paying that off, but I think there's a non-zero chance that he does not pay that off this year as well. I'll stop talking. Give me your thoughts on Mike Evans this year.
I like Mike Evans. I compare him a lot to Henry. I mean, until I see signs that he's not going to be who he's been, I treat him like he is who he is. Trying to think of, I don't view the Egbuka thing as a criticism on Evans. I mean, I think that was really more, they don't want to rush Godwin back. I think I read somewhere their general manager said, we took a best player available approach. We really like Egbuka. Godwin's going to be a huge part of our offense still, but this way we don't have to rush him back. I think Mike Evans continues to be the number one target there. He's a guy that just demands the ball. He's tall. He's perpetually open. He makes highlight reel catches. He mosses guys whenever he's one of these guys who is fun to watch. I don't see him going anywhere. That being said, I don't know that he's going to play after this season. So I like him more in redraft than I do dynasty, but with all these old guys on my roster, these proven players, I'm just going to ride them until the wheels fall off.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me into this next point. And I think you kind of already answered it. I am of the same dynasty thinking as you. I feel like if you try to sell on these guys late in their career, I think you often get burned by it because you're not going to get a lot for them. You're probably not going to get full value. And this is my Hines Ward theorem, right? Hines Ward, I just kept on my roster and I just was like, yeah, I'll throw him in wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, bye weeks, whatever. And yet this dude churned out great season after great season when everybody else left him for dead. And for me, I'm much more likely to just be like, I've been a bag holder on Travis Kelce in a couple of my leagues, in dynasty leagues, the last few seasons. Mike Evans, I do own in a couple of my dynasty leagues as well. And I just feel like trying to sell these guys towards the end of their career, you're actually, it's detrimental to your team because I think that the probability for these guys who, it's not like Evans had like a 400-yard season last year, right? Like
Right.
He still had a really good season. And so when they're not, maybe they're showing signs and, maybe they fall off the cliff. I just feel like more often than not, if you trade these players towards the end of their careers, you end up regretting it. And that's not something I want to do. And it seems like that's the way you're playing it. Obviously, I don't want to lump all players into that bucket, but it seems like more often than not, you're playing it the same way.
100%. I mean, my concern with a guy like Evans or Henry is just that they're more likely to get injured as they get older. I mean, their level of play has been pretty consistent, but as you get older, I know I'm 47 and I know what it's like to roll out of bed and have a kink in your neck just because your head was turned one way at night. Right. So I get that. I look at them and I say, next season, I might need to do something with that roster spot, but as long as they're there, I'm happy to have them.
I am too. And I always think about like with players like that, that's a problem for 2026 me. That's a problem for 2027. Like, I'm just going to live out and see what I can do with these guys on my team. Okay, let's get back to your Lions here. There has been a groundswell of love, and we'll get to, I think I got Roma Dunze in here. Maybe I don't have Roma Dunze. I thought I did. Yeah, I got Roma Dunze in here somewhere. Maybe I don't. Damn it. Did I not put Roma Dunze in the rundown? I wanted to talk. Well, we'll find a way to bring up Roma Odunze with you tonight. But let's talk about Jameson Williams here.
Yeah.
Jameson Williams is a player that we have heard talked about in trade rumors. We have heard him talked about by Dan Campbell as this, or not Campbell, John Morton, talking about this could be his best season ever, right? Morton saying, I've never been around somebody this fast except for Jahmyr Gibbs. So he's been around, two really fast players now that he's been the OC here for the Lions. Jameson Williams, what are his chances on having his best season ever this year? And I'll bring this up right now, which I did not realize until a couple of weeks ago, Adam, that Jameson Williams actually had over 1,000 yards receiving last year, which I didn't blow my mind, but I was really surprised to see that. Just over 1,000. Well, he had 1,300 or anything like that. It was just over 1,000. But wide receiver 29 at the 604 in big gorilla drafts right now. It's behind Hunter and Flowers. It's ahead of Pickens and Judy. What are the chances that Jameson Williams, number one, has his best season ever, and number two, and maybe more importantly, pays off that mid-6th round ADP?
I think there's a really good chance he pays off that ADP. I mean, I think he's going to be better than he was last year. He's effectively coming into his third season, which is an inflection point for a lot of receivers. It's technically his fourth, but he missed all of his first because of injury. And so I consider that basically a lost season. He's showed a lot of growth. Last year in training camp, Campbell was saying things like he's finally one of the guys, right? His sound bites weren't as critical. He's meshing with the system. He's one of the guys. He's a guy that blocks his ass off. He's a guy that plays to win, not for stats. Those are guys who do well on the Lions. I mean, he feels like a Lion to me. I don't expect him to be traded. There's a chance, I guess, that they don't, if he has another 1,000-yard season, maybe they don't have the money to re-sign him. And that was what the Isaac Toslaw draft pick was about. But I mean, certainly this season, I love JMO.
What do you make of that Toslaw thing? Because they gave up essentially 2 extra third-round picks to get this guy on their team. And Toslaw is a guy that, you could see the raw ability, right? Yeah. But it is raw. I mean, it's not like he had all this great production last year at Arkansas. The pieces are there for him to be a quality NFL receiver, maybe a quality fantasy receiver as well. It sounds like that is not playing a big role in how you feel about Jameson Williams, though. The fact that they gave up all this capital to get up and get this guy, that could be Williams' replacement. Yeah,
he might be. I don't think he will be this year. I love Isaac. Look, and in full disclosure, I'm a little biased. So he is from my neck of the woods, my current hometown. And I have a high school age daughter that is a stud 2-sport athlete. And she works out at the same sports performance facility Isaac did when he was in high school. And he comes back and trains when he's home from college. And, I didn't make the connection at first. It's a Dutch sounding last name. And I remember seeing it on the record board when I'd go to the gym to pick up my daughter. And I think it was Lance Zierlein's combine tracker. I was scrolling down one day and I saw Isaac Toslaw, and I thought, God, that is not a common name. And I scrolled over, clicked on it. He's from Hudsonville, Michigan, which is basically where I live.
Right.
And so the next time I was in the gym, I found the head coach and I said, what can you tell me about Isaac? And this facility is chock full of exceptional high school and college level athletes looking to bring the best out of themselves. Without missing a beat, he said he is one of the highest motor, highest character kids we've ever trained. I would bet on him. And that was before the Lions drafted him. So I was obviously juiced when we did. I mean, I understand we paid a lot, but, he's like a 4.43. He's a 40-inch vertical. He started as a quarterback in high school in a wing tee offense. He's very smart. He went to Hillsdale, where his dad had a bunch of football records. It's a small Division II school in Michigan. He went to Hillsdale, broke all his dad's records, entered the portal, went to Arkansas. He didn't get a lot of playing time, but he's also new to the position. So he feels like a Lion to me. I've seen interviews where Holmes said he went to the Senior Bowl, didn't know anything about him, saw him blocking his ass off and what he said, pestering the hell out of defensive backs. And he said, who is this kid? Get me his film. And he checked him out and said he was my favorite receiver in the draft. So I like Isaac. It's not soured me on JMO at all, especially this year. But would I be surprised if Jameson Williams puts up 1,000-yard season and we don't re-sign him and Isaac slots into his role? No, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. You're constantly reloading. And I think that we have seen in the NFL, a lot of smart GMs will do this, where they will bet on the work ethic. They will bet on the talent. They will bet on the stuff that you can't coach up, right? I think the Packers have done this for years at the edge rusher position, right? Where they take these raw guys. Sometimes they turn out, right? Like Rashawn Gary had all these intangibles that, you simply, it's God-given talent, work ethic and athletic ability. And sometimes it works out. And then you look at Lucas Van Ness with the Packers, who was like a top 15 pick in the NFL draft, had all the talent in the world, all the athletic ability. They call him Hercules because of how he looks, but hasn't translated into NFL production. And could this happen with Tesla? I don't know. He's raw. He's got all these things that you just can't coach. So why not take a chance at him when everybody's trying to win at the margins in the NFL? And quite frankly, we're trying to win at the margins in Dynasty Fantasy Football as well. Might be worth a chance to take Tesla on your team. Deion Sanders apparently wanted him, according to Bill Hollywood, another big Lions fan.
Nice.
Hanging out in the YouTube chat tonight. So there you go. All right, let's go to another rookie in Houston. I have had the opportunity to draft this guy a couple of times. I think I've done it once, but I think it was redraft. I think it was a redraft best ball team. I don't think I've taken him in Dynasty, even though I had the opportunity, and I keep passing him up, and here's why. Jalen Noel in Houston. There's a narrative out there that says because Higgins and Collins are so complementary that Noel, who is a different type of receiver stylistically, will get on the field more, right? Because he complements what Collins and Higgins do. I look at it from the standpoint, Adam, like this guy is like the third target on this team right now, and maybe long-term he's the fourth. I mean, we'll see what happens with Tank Dell. Maybe Tank Dell is just done. I don't know. But I really have a hard time. It's part of the reason. Who's the guy the Chiefs took, the receiver this year in the draft?
Williams?
No. Day 3. He was a guy that I've had the opportunity to draft, and I'm like, I can't take this guy because the YouTube channel helped me out, because he's behind Worthy. He's behind Rashee Rice. I don't understand. Yeah, Jalen Royals. Thank you, Adam Hahn. We have that right now. John Terry also chiming in. Jalen Royals. Like I haven't been taking this guy, and I'm kind of applying the same thing to Noel here, because I understand that he should be on the field more, but man, Collins and Higgins are really good. Higgins was the first second-round pick to get a fully guaranteed contract by the NFL. So to me, it's just like, why should I be in on Noel? Are you in on Noel? Can you sell me on Jalen Noel as a dynasty prospect?
Yes, I'm in on Noel. I feel the same way about him I do about Devin Neal. He was a guy who I targeted wherever I could grab him. I think he was the third best receiver out of this class to my untrained eye. I think he's better than his teammate Higgins. I understand he's been comped to, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name. It's late. Christian Kirk. He's been comped to Kirk. They're very similar. And the other guy was comped to Nico Collins. And so it's kind of odd they reloaded with doppelgangers of their guys.
Exactly.
But, Noel's fast. He's physical. He plays bigger than his size. He's a guy that put up 25 reps on the bench press at the combine. That's like offensive lineman numbers, right? So he's sub 4.4, 25 reps. I thought he was a better player than Higgins. So it's one of these where I'm just betting on my gut. Like in my line of work, following your gut is one of the most important things you can do. You can overthink things. As an attorney, you're trained to overthink things, but we have these intuitions, and you have to learn to trust your intuition. My intuition is that Jalen Noel's going to be a great pro. It might take him a little while to see the field. Tank Dell might not come back. Higgins may disappoint. They may just decide that Noel can be moved outside as well as inside, and they just want him out there more often. But he's got, I don't ever want to compare anybody to St. Brown. There's only one St. Brown, but he reminded me of St. Brown when I watched his film. His
really? Jalen Noel did. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So now I have to bring this up because I'm glad you brought up the intuition aspect of it. Maybe there's some crossover here from practicing law and playing dynasty fantasy football. Maybe there's not. But sometimes I think when I have convictions about how I think a certain thing is going to turn out, my tendency, and I fought against this for years, I'm getting better at it over the last 10 or so. My tendency is just to live in my own echo chamber, and I will search out statistics, opinions, thoughts, reasons that just support what I think is the correct answer, right? Rather than open my mind to all the other possibilities, right? As a lawyer, I'm sure that you battle with this too, where you think you know what the right play is, what the right answer is, what the right circumstance is, but you have to trust your gut to a certain point. Do you feel like that transfers over to fantasy football where you're trusting your gut, but at the same time, when you research it, it's not always easy to open your mind up to opposing viewpoints on that? I think that's what, I don't want to say separates the men from the boys in Dynasty, but I think, God, that is such a tough thing to deal with.
It's a tough line to straddle. I mean, you don't want to get caught up in take lock, right? Which is another way of thinking about it. But at the same time, if you're a football fan and you've been playing Dynasty long enough, you will develop organically an intuition, and you shouldn't tune that out just because Matt Harmon or somebody who knows a lot about ball says otherwise. Mm-hmm. So the approach I take, again, I don't watch a lot of college football. I will come to the scouting process late. After the season's over, I'll pull up highlight videos. I'll read a bunch. I'll listen to a bunch of people, Matt Harmon being one of them, the folks on Bootleg Football, just the guys who know a lot about ball. I'll listen to what they say about prospects. I'll see what matches my untrained eye, and then I'll kind of let my intuition take it from there. And then, I mean, obviously landing spot plays a huge role. I think the Houston landing spot is a sneaky good one for Noel. I really do.
And I shouldn't be sharing this because this throws my credibility right out the window. There have been so many times where I'm on the clock in like a best ball league or even KFFSC main event or whatever, where like I'm deciding on a player, like, oh, should I draft him here? Should I not? And it's just whatever podcast I last listened to or whatever article I last read, what they said about, like, well, Jared Smola said this about him, so I'm going to take him. You know what I mean? Like, it's so stupid and it's dumb. And I can't get out of my own head. And again, I've gotten away from that a little bit, but still it's in my mind. Okay.
I totally agree. I mean, I think of it this way, Eric, to some degree, rookie drafts, any draft, it's get your guy season. If you feel strongly about a guy, so I took him with the 7th pick instead of the 10th. I didn't capture value. Who cares? I got the guy I wanted. If I think this guy is going to be a 250-point player or a 300-point player, why the hell wouldn't I take him if he's available?
I was listening to the Fantasy Points podcast with John Hansen and Brian Drake today, actually. And they were talking about George Wendt stories, who played Norm on Cheers, just passed away, RIP.
Yeah.
And Hansen was in a league it was like a celebrity league. This is way back in the day. And he was co-owners with George Wendt on this team. And they were talking about, like, listen, we have to get the Bears defense here in this league, because not only are they going to be good, but you are like the Bears super fan from Saturday Night Live. Like we have to have George Wendt say, with our, 9th overall pick, George Wendt, John Hansen take the Bears. Like, it would have been great. I think it was Pilar Lastra, who a longtime SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio host, ended up taking the Bears in the 7th round that year. And the Bears scored their defense is unbelievable. This is, I don't know how many years ago it was, but they scored like double-digit touchdowns. And so Hansen said, like, this is one of the biggest regrets of my fantasy career, is not taking the Bears defense to make sure I got him. So if there is a player in Dynasty redraft, and you don't want to get crazy with this, but if there's a player that you just got to have, take him 2 rounds early, just to make sure you have him on your team, which is kind of like what we're talking about here.
For sure.
Especially in Dynasty, dude. I'll look at Dynasty ADP for my rookie drafts, but man, it's really hard for me to put a whole lot of stock into that because I overdraft guys in that all the time. We're all just going on research. We're going on gut. We're going on what other people say because we've never seen these guys in an NFL field. So to me, like overdrafting them, it's like, well, who says that that's an overdraft? We don't know. Like redraft, it's a little bit different, but Dynasty, man, it is totally get your guy season there.
For sure.
Travis Hunter is the new wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars after they traded up from 5 to get him, which is wild when you think about all the different weaknesses that the Jaguars probably had coming into the draft. You would not have thought wide receiver was one of them.
No.
With Brian Thomas being the second best, maybe the best wide receiver in the 2024 rookie class. And then Jacksonville went ahead. Sigmund Bloom always talks about this from Football Guys. Make your strength even stronger, which is what the Jaguars did. Now they have Travis Hunter opposite Brian Thomas, which is great for the Jaguars. But is it great for Brian Thomas? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. What are your thoughts on how Hunter is going to affect Brian Thomas's stat line this season?
I don't feel like it'll negatively affect BTJ. I love BTJ. I've got a bunch of shares. He was another guy I grabbed wherever I could, even if I had to spend what was considered an early pick to get him in last year's rookie drafts. But no, I just think adding it, look, they lost Evan Ingram. They don't have Christian Kirk. It's not like having 2 pass catchers necessarily means the guy who's the number 1 is going to suffer statistically. I think if anything, it'll help. I mean, it could maybe lead to them getting opportunities where they can be more creative with Thomas. So no, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it'll negatively impact Thomas. And I think Thomas's presence should help Hunter too.
What do you make of, I took De'Ami Brown as it was like a 25th, 26th round pick in a best ball that I was doing. He's been getting some favorable reviews. I mean, it's OTAs, whatever, who cares?
Yeah.
But what do you make of De'Ami Brown there, considering that if Hunter were to miss some time and if he's playing, defensive snaps as well, I don't know how his body's going to react to that. But if Brown were to step in on that offense in place of Thomas, in place of Hunter as the number 2 option, I think that's kind of sneaky. It's sneaky exciting. What do you think about De'Ami Brown as a late round best ball pick? And I know, listen, draft whoever you want that late. It doesn't really matter. But what do you make of De'Ami Brown as the number 3 receiver in Jacksonville this year?
I don't hate it. I mean, I honestly, Eric, I hadn't thought much about Brown, but I mean, why not? I mean, it's just as probable a dart throw as taking anybody else in the late rounds. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's got a conceivable path to target share, anybody who's a veteran player that showed they can have success on that level is worth taking a flyer on, especially if you think there's a chance they end up as the number 2 target. I don't know that Brown ends up as a number 2 target, but
he won't. I mean,
he doesn't.
Yeah, no, here's the thing. I don't think he does. But I do think if there were any, again, it's just an injury away type thing where maybe he's the number 2 target for 3 weeks in November or 2 weeks in October. And maybe that's all the difference to spur you up, your leaderboard, your scoreboard, or whatever you need to do. I think that's what I'm looking at. Like, it gets to be a certain point in drafts, more so with running backs than wide receivers. I'm just looking for windows, right? Windows of opportunity. Knowing these guys, who's the guy in Minnesota that they just traded from San Francisco?
Mason.
Jordan Mason. Thank you. Yeah. That's a perfect guy. It's not like Aaron Jones has to tear an ACL for him to have value. Right. Aaron Jones could strain a hammy, and then I get 3 weeks of starting running back out of Jordan Mason. Yeah, I love that.
100%.
And that's the thing with De'Ami Brown too. It's just windows at that point. Not necessarily. I don't need to hit a home run. You said yourself you like doubles as much.
Doubles are just as good, right?
Just as good as home runs. Yeah.
And Eric Mason's another guy I love. I mean, he's shown that when you give him a heavy workload, he can handle it, and he's a different kind of running back than Jones. So I'm bullish on Mason.
The other thing about Mason is, I know they didn't give up a lot of draft capital to get him from San Francisco, but then they signed him to that contract. And Aaron Jones has always dealt with a lot of soft tissue stuff in his time in Green Bay. He didn't deal with anything like that in Minnesota last year. He had his I think he had the most touches of any season as a pro in Minnesota last year. I am willing to bet that was an outlier and that he is not going to be able to give be able to take that volume and stay healthy, which is another reason I like Jordan Mason this year. Jordan Mason, by the way, in the FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament over the last 7 days, running back 37 at the 9-10 turn. I'm definitely in on that. Okay, we have to get to these YouTube chat questions here. I'm trying to find it here. Yeah, Cooley Gang said this earlier. We were talking about the Jags. Well, now he's not a Jag anymore. He's a Bronco. But do you think Evan Engram is a sneaky good pick? Because I think him and Nix will be awesome. Evan Engram is going as tight end 8, Adam, right now at the 702. He is essentially a full round behind Hawkinson and Kelsey. He's going right at the same spot as Jonnu Smith, and he's going about a half round ahead of Njoku and Mark Andrews. What do you think about Evan Engram, being a sneaky good pick at the 702?
I love Evan Engram. And when they signed him, the talk was that he was going to be Sean Payton's Joker, which is terrific, right? Everybody wants Payton's Joker. Look, Evan Engram is a guy who's explosive when you get him into space. He's a great pass catching tight end. If you can get, he's relatively inexpensive as well in drafts. So he's a guy who I feel good about, especially in redraft in the short term. I've got Evan Engram shares on my dynasty teams, and I look at him the way I look at Henry. All right, that's a 2026 issue, a 2027 issue, but for 2025, I'm riding with him.
So the other thing too, we got on the Jaguars here on the show. Pearson pumped this into the YouTube chat. Since we're on the Jags topic, the Bashal Tutin fumble on the first touch in camp has gained some traction. Now, Bashal Tutin in the FFPC Big Gorilla, again, over the last 7 days, Bashal Tutin is running back 33 at the 811. I have seen some pundits rankings out there, and not a whole lot of them put him as a top 35 running back for redraft. I can tell myself a story. The story is getting more and more realistic as I go on, that the Jaguars simply just, the new coaching regime does not like Travis Etienne, that Tank Bigsby is sort of just a guy. And then they went and invested not only in Bashal Tutin in this draft, but they also invested in LaQuint Allen, who could be the future 1-2 punch in Jacksonville. Liam Cohen, or not Liam Cohen. I think it was James Gladstone. James Gladstone, the GM of Jacksonville, when he was being interviewed for the GM job, they said, well, who's a player that you would like to get on this team? And he said, well, I'd love to get a player like Bashal Tutin. And then lo and behold, what happens? They end up drafting Bashal Tutin. I like this guy. I like him quite a bit. And I've heard a lot of people, and I think I'm with these people, keep fumbling Bashal, because I need your ADP to go down. I would like a lot of shares of Tutin. You're a dynasty guy as well. How do you feel about Tutin and his future in Jacksonville? I'm very bullish on this player.
I think they drafted him for a reason. He's got juice for days. I will tell you, he's a guy who in my rookie drafts I avoided, not because I don't like him, but just because I wasn't willing to pay the market rate for him. He's a guy who, to me, the most important characteristic is vision, right? We talked about athleticism versus being a good runner of the football. I think he is an average runner of the football, but he's super duper explosive. He's not a guy who creates, except for the fact he's very fast. Mm-hmm. And I contradict him with a guy like Achane. Achane was also very fast, but he was an incredible runner of the football. I mean, he's got incredible vision. He's a guy who, he was small, but I forget, one of his last games of his last season, I think he had like 35 carries against LSU, ran for 200 yards. He was pounding it in between the tackles across the goal line. This is a guy who plays running back, who happens to be really, really fast. I don't know that I feel the same way about Tutin, even though their speed's the same. I don't dislike Tutin. I just wasn't going to pay what he was going for in drafts.
So right now, if you're doing a redraft league, and you see Tutin going at the 8-9 turn in Cam Scatterbu, Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, Tyrone Tracy territory, does that seem like a good buy to you?
In redraft, I would probably take all those guys over Tutin. I would definitely take Najee Harris over Tutin in redraft. In Dynasty, I feel a little bit better about him, but Scatterbu's a guy, he's really interesting to me. I think he's a great player. I think he's very underrated. He reminds me a lot of David Montgomery. I think the Giants took him so that he could be the early down guy. I love Tyrone Tracy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not critical of Tracy, but he is not built to carry the load. Scatterbu is. And so, I could see Scatterbu getting close to 200 touches this year and having a significant portion of the goal line equity. I'm interested in guys like that, particularly in the 8th and 9th round of a draft. Like if you're going 0 RB, I look for goal line equity and
pass catching.
Typically I'll take the cheapest of a backfield duo if I'm doing 0 RB. Because often there's a huge market disparity. Like one guy's going in round 4, one guy's going in round 10, and you're like, I like the guy in round 10 at that price. But Scadaboo's a guy who, I mean, goal line equity is big. It's why I love Montgomery. I had a bunch of Gibbs shares this year, and I offloaded them wherever I could because people saw Jahmyr. He's a great player. He's my son's favorite player. We have an autograph of Jahmyr Gibbs at the house. He's great. But the point is, people remember the last couple games of the season when Montgomery wasn't there. They share a backfield. Gibbs is not going to be the bell cow. He's not built to be the bell cow. The Lions offense is successful because they have both of those guys. They're each super insurance policies on the other, but instead of taking Gibbs in the first round, I'll take Montgomery in the 6th or the 7th.
Theo Greminger from Fantasy Points, he was talking about this more so in like February, March. I don't know if he's, I mean, I listened to a lot of his stuff and I haven't heard him, and maybe he still feels this way. I don't know. But he said that he thinks in the FFPC Big Gorilla and the main event, we were going to see some Jahmyr Gibbs 101 picks simply for the point that you're bringing up. Everybody remembers how last season ended, and they don't necessarily remember that part of the reason Gibbs was putting up those video game numbers was because David Montgomery wasn't out there. And he's not saying, hey, you need to take Gibbs at the 101. He just thought, like, we're going to see some Gibbs at the 101. I don't know if we've seen it in the Big Gorilla over the last 7 days. I'm going to look that up right now. Jahmyr Gibbs, the highest he's gone has been the 102. So he's got up to the 102. Average ADP of the 105. So there you go on that. Just real quick on the Scadaboo Tracy thing. I'm going to bring this up right now. SNY, Connor Hughes, who covers the Giants, said that, and again, this was, a week and a half ago, it wouldn't be surprising if Scadaboo wound up as the Giants' third down back. But yet, Adam, you see it a little bit differently. You think Scadaboo could be the early down banger, first and second down, and then Tracy is the guy who comes out on third down.
I do. And he might know a heck of a lot more than me if he's covering the Giants. That's just my gut feeling. I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of teams trying to replicate the Sonic and Knuckles, Montgomery and Gibbs, right? We've got a guy with a lot of juice. We've got a guy who can shake and pound in between the tackles. And I see Scadaboo and Tracy as being some version of that combo. And to me, Scadaboo is going to be the early down guy.
Just so I'm not putting words in your mouth, Scadaboo is running back 31 at the 806. Tyrone Tracy running back 35 at the 902. In a perfect world, your opinion in redraft, you're skipping Scadaboo and you're taking Tracy?
Probably.
Okay. All right.
Probably.
Perfect. Adam Hahn saying Scadaboo is a future third down back. We'll see. I don't know. I could go either way on this right now. But that's the thing, and that's why these guys are going so close together and so late, where they're both 8th and 9th round picks. Like, we just don't know how the Giants are going to deploy them. And oh, by the way, the Giants offense could stink this year. That's another thing we have to consider too, is like, how much run are these guys going to get if it's just the Malik Neighbors show again in 2025? We are up against it. I want to get to a couple emails and one final question here before we let you go tonight, Adam. Clyde in Buffalo. Do I have this right? No, I do not. No. Let's skip the emails. My apologies. This email is not, it's not accurate. We got to skip it. Okay. Sorry, Clyde in Buffalo. Let's ask one final question of you. Answer this, dynasty purposes, redraft purposes, however you want to handle it. If there's one player that you want to try to get on as many teams as possible this season, who is it, realistically? Obviously, I'm sure you'd love to say Bijan Robinson or Saquon Barkley. That just can't happen because you won't get the 101 or 102 in every single draft. Or Jamar Chase is another one. So one player realistically that you want to get on all your teams this season, and then another player, maybe you're trying to deal him off your dynasty leagues. Maybe it's a player that you just don't want to have anything to do with on your 2025 squads, Adam.
I love Caleb Johnson. I'm getting him wherever I can. He's a guy who was built for an outside zone scheme where he's going to get a lot of volume, and he has a perfect landing spot. His 40-yard dash wasn't great. His 10-yard split wasn't great, but he's another guy who I'm told, hit 21 miles an hour during the 40-yard dash. So he reminds me a lot of like a Derrick Henry. He needs some time to build up speed, but once he gets rolling, he's going to inherit the lion's share, if not all of, in my view, Najee Harris's touches. We know who Jaylen Warren is. He's a great player. He's good to have on your roster, but he's not their bell cow. I think Johnson will be their bell cow, and he's a guy who I've got pegged as somewhere in between a 250 and 300-point player. Maybe not this season, but fully realized I think he will be.
I think the other thing to understand about the Caleb Johnson thing is, like, yeah, he was only a third-round pick or whatever, but that's still day 2 draft capital. And Jaylen Warren, I think we saw a report from one of the Steelers beat writers saying that they expect Warren to play out this contract in Pittsburgh this season, and then he's off the Steelers next year. So obviously they have much more invested into Caleb Johnson. Why wouldn't you want to see what you have in this guy? And like, I think he gets a bad rap that he's not a pass catcher. Caleb Johnson could catch passes too.
Sure. I think he's a good football player.
Yeah, which is what you want.
Right.
Hey, David Hubbard, former 2016 FFPC Main Event. This is an easy game. Just draft good players. That's all you need to do, and then you'll win. Right. A guy who's not a good player, a player that you want to stay away from this season, who would that be, Adam?
Yeah, that's tough. And I'm not a hater. I mean, I'm mostly agnostic when it comes to players. To me, it's about what I have to pay for them, right? I mean, they're like any other, they're like a car. I'll drive anything. The question is, how much do I need to pay for it, right? I'm not willing to pay Ferrari money for a Ford, but a car is a car and I need a ride to work. So there's nobody who I'm all the way out on. But I'm going to think a guy who's just going too expensive.
Well, I always frame it like this too. Like when I get to like, I don't know, like round 6, round 7 or whatever, or even like the mid rounds, like 10, 11, there are certain players that just stick out to me. Like they are easy to eliminate for me as possibilities in those rounds. And so I think that's how we could frame the question too. It's just like, maybe you don't hate these guys. You don't dislike these guys, but they never really come into the conversation of like, yeah, maybe I'll take this guy here.
I mean, maybe any Chiefs pass catcher besides Travis Kelce, I mean, I'm not feeling like that's necessarily going to be the right play.
See, now you bring this up. I think this is a good conversation to end on tonight. In regards to the Chiefs, Rashee Rice has finally moved up. Like it seemed like every single fantasy pundit out there has been saying screaming value for Rashee Rice. Well, now he's finally starting to move up boards. He has moved up to wide receiver 19 at the 402. Xavier Worthy is going right behind him at the 406. For you, it's an easy decision. Like you're not paying early 4th round draft capital for either one of those receivers when quite frankly, we don't know if are they going to cannibalize each other? Is one going to be the standout somehow? And then you still got to deal with Travis Kelce there as well.
Yeah. I mean, I view their wide receiver room a lot like I do the Packers. I mean, there's just a lot of unknowns and I'm not going to pay 4th round value for an unknown. I'd probably take a tight end or a quarterback in that range, to be honest.
Yeah. If we look at it right now, I'll figure out my mojo here and tell you who else is going there. But there are players. I mean, if you look in that Rice-worthy territory, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Omarion Hampton is there, DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Jaden Daniels. Let's talk about Hampton here for a second. I know I keep saying we're going to end it. We're going to end it. Right. That's stuff that always comes up. You liked Najee Harris quite a bit over who's the running back we were talking about earlier?
Tootin.
Bichelle Tootin, yeah. You liked him quite a bit there. Do you also like the value of Najee Harris compared to Omarion Hampton's value?
I mean, I expect Harris to start the season as their bell cow. I think once Hampton sees the field, he'll be tough to keep off the field. Mm-hmm. And I expect by the end of the season, he will be a 15 to 20 point player every game. I mean, Hampton will be. Hampton for sure. But so I view Harris the way I viewed Chuba Hubbard last year. And I didn't know that. God, I'm blanking on the kid's name from Texas who they drafted that hurt himself again.
Oh, Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah. I mean, the thought was Brooks is going to come back, but you could get Hubbard really late. And I thought, all right, so I've got 6 weeks of a starting running back, right? You're talking about windows. Like I saw a window there. I think the same thing for Harris. I'm willing to pay, 9th, 10th round value for a window of 6, 7, maybe 8 weeks of starting running back, especially if you're going 0 RB. When I do 0 RB, that's what I do. I mean, I window shop. Literally, I look for those opportunities. And so I target guys who should start the season as the starting back.
You know what's funny about that with the Chargers is Hampton is already running back 15, at the 403 in the FFPC Big Gorilla competition. Harris is running back 34 at the 901. I don't think history would say that those guys are going to get closer. History would say the younger guy will move up more. The veteran will fall more. Well, the veteran is already going, what did I just say? Like 5 rounds after the rookie. Like, as we get closer and closer to live drafts at Paris in Las Vegas for the FFPC live events, we're going to see Hampton go up a little bit more. Not a lot, but a little bit. We could see Harris fall even more. Yeah. And Harris could be a double-digit round pick. Can you even imagine that? It's crazy. He might be a screaming value as well when during drafting season. We'll have it all covered on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. My God, Adam, the hour just flew by. I feel like I've been talking this whole time, but I've learned a lot from you. A 5-time FFPC league champion, a guy that I know will have a lot more championships in store, not only in 2025, but beyond. Congratulations on your success.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for pinch hitting for Ferrell tonight. You were awesome.
Happy to do it.
And I know that the YouTube chat was lit up, so they definitely loved having you on as well. Be good, go Lions, and hopefully we'll talk down the road for sure.
You bet. Have a great holiday.
Thank you. Happy Memorial Day to you as well. That is Adam Tountas, ladies and gentlemen, 5-time FFPC league champion, joining me in the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. I want to thank him. I want to thank the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you for hanging out, watching, streaming, listening, downloading. We will be back next Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern time with another great guest. In case you missed Thursday night's Insider Access show on the Better Sports Network, we had Darren Armani from Fantasy Mojo on last night. He and I chopped it up for 2 hours. That was a blast as well. Learned a lot about Fantasy Mojo. In fact, the middle segment we had on the show was literally called What I Learned at FantasyMojo.com. So if you want to know what you can learn at FantasyMojo.com, watch that show. It's on the FFPC and Better Sports Network socials. We will be back this coming Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 to 9. RotoWire and SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio's Jim Coventry will guest co-host with me on Thursday. So that's going to be a lot of fun. The Big Gorilla, yes. The FFPC Best Ball Tournament, yes. The FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament, yes. And, of course, Dynasty Startups, yes. What you also need to be saying yes to, the FFPC Main Event. Our flagship event, $1 million grand prize, $6 million prize pool. The early bird deadline will be 8 days from now, midnight Pacific time. That is your deadline to save $200 off your first team and be entered into the prestigious FFPC Pros versus Joes drawing, where you could be one of the 42 Joes chosen to battle 42 industry pros and compete for 7 FFPC main event entries that will be free, one awarded to each league champion for 2026. Slow drafts are already off and running. We're going to have live drafts, I think, starting next week as well. So check that out at myffpc.com. For Adam Tountas, I have been Eric Balkman. This has been the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Football Players Championship YouTube channel. Your weekend, your holiday weekend, officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Yeah, programming note, I have to remind everybody, Ferrell will not be on the show next week either. He will rejoin me the first Friday in June as a co-host. That is June 6th. He'll be back. So I'll have not only a guest next week, I'll have another guest co-host next week as well, which is always a lot of fun. So check that out. Have a great weekend. Be safe and enjoy your friends and family this holiday weekend. I'll talk with you again Thursday night on Insider Access, and then, of course, the HSFF Hour next Friday. Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate each and every one of you.